Moolala is brought to you by the nonprofit credit counseling agency Credit Canada. Being self-employed can come with a lot of benefits. You get to be entrepreneurial, you get to be your own boss, maybe you get to set your own hours, most likely 10, 12, 14 a day sometimes, but there's lots of flexibility. On the other hand, running your own business, being self-employed, will almost certainly not include a traditional pension plan. You are going to be responsible for saving for your retirement. Leslie-Anne Scorgie is a personal finance columnist for the Toronto Star. She is the founder of the financial education company MeVest. And in one of her recent columns, she talked about starting the retirement planning process for folks who are self-employed. And we decided it'd be a really helpful conversation for us to have on this show. She's in Toronto with more. Hello, Leslie-Anne.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I love that you're focusing on this demographic, because I think it really is a group that is underserved. The traditional financial services companies, the products, everything's very focused on people with a job. Why did you decide to write about self-employed folks?
So during the pandemic, the freelancer pool grew by 70%.
Wow.
And we saw so many people launch and start businesses. But the real reason I wrote the article about what to do with your retirement planning if you're an entrepreneur is because I see two very big mistakes entrepreneurs are making, and it's they're very costly. And so the first one that I talk about is the fact that a lot of entrepreneurs assume that retirement savings are kind of magically going to appear down the road when the cash flow of their business is much stronger than it is today. And then the second mistake is that the business itself, and hopefully selling it eventually, is the retirement nest egg, and that the proceeds from the sale will be enough to cover the full cost of their golden years. So this, because I'm always hopeful, I am an entrepreneur,
Yes.
but I can tell you that these two things, even though they might happen, in many cases, they actually do not happen. Or if they happen, it's at a much reduced amount where it's just not enough, or it is actually too late. And so with the way time marches on, as it does, the more entrepreneurs put this proactive retirement planning business off to the side, because you just called it out, they're working 14 hours a day. The more they put this off, the less benefit they have from compounded interest, reinvested returns, and almost more importantly, the retirement savings habits that are necessary to really grow and grow your nest egg and be ready for retirement.
The first one, the magically appear in the future, it's almost consistent. It is consistent with the diluted optimism it takes to be an entrepreneur, right? I was just gonna figure it out. The second one, though, I don't know what the stats would be, but the sale of your business is, especially when it is a founder-driven business or a professional service, it's really low.
It is very difficult. And I've got a number of students who have tried this avenue. And interestingly, one of my students who's been with me for a very long time, her father just went through this process. He's 70 years old, banking on the sale of his consulting business. And of course, nobody buys it because he is the business is himself. And so he went down his retirement planning path thinking that somebody would just pay him $2.5 million for this book of clients. And the unfortunate reality is that if you are in especially a service-based business where you are the face of it, the chances of raising the proceeds required for a retirement are quite low. And that is not a retirement plan.
Mm. There is the cash flow component, and we can come back to that in a second, because often, especially when you're starting a business, it's so hard to have money to save, let alone continue to invest in the business. But before we get to that, I want to ask you about the savings vehicle, because
Right.
right now there is a tax-free savings account, there is an RSP. For entrepreneurs who are incorporated, they can also have a non-registered corporate investment account and keep all that money in the business and invest in a diversified portfolio in exactly the same way as if it were outside of the business. What are some of the pros and cons to option number 3, an account that is the corporate investment account?
Yeah, there are some key benefits there. So we'll step this one back to not get it super complicated, but keeping money within the business and investing it corporately obviously prevents it from flowing to you personally until you need it. That means that less income tax is paid on your personal income taxes. So there can be benefits there. What I find very interesting is that I'm seeing more small businesses look at other techniques to set up almost like pension plans within their business or for their small business, like individual pension plans and deferred profit sharing plans. And all of this, like if it's held within the business, some of the benefits are that the administrative costs and the contributions themselves can be deductible against the earnings of the business. So that's yet another avenue. But I think it's all to do with taxes. And for entrepreneurs, yes, you've got the TFSA, yes, you've got the RSP, but let's not forget that growing your nest egg within your business is a totally viable option. And it can have that flexibility to craft a really well-balanced portfolio within the business. Like I said, kind of like preventing any unnecessary taxes.
Yeah, because if you keep the retained earnings in the corporation, then you can just keep yourself on salary or dividends up until the day you die, provided there's a nest egg there, and that there is a huge tax advantage. A lot of self-employed folks and entrepreneurs, they don't choose to incorporate. They're going to have a GST number if they're in excess of 30 grand or so. How do you steer them to TFSA versus RRSP?
Oh, it's like one of the most asked questions I get. Like, and the answer I say to most entrepreneurs is like, there is a 95% chance that both of these tools, the RRSP and the TFSA, are actually going to play a role in your retirement planning. And the degree of that role is what should be very carefully planned year by year with two really important people on your financial dream team. The first person is your financial planner. That second person is your accountant. So there are reasons why you might prioritize the RRSP over the TFSA. So like, let's say the pool of money you had to invest was $1,000. If you check in with your accountant, check in with your financial planner, and they say, you know what, you make a certain amount of money, it's going to make sense for you to put more money in the RRSP this year, they'll split that available amount of money in like a proportion that's going to be most tax advantaged. So it could be that 2/3 of that money might go toward the RRSP and 1/3 toward the TFSA. But here's what I'm getting at is that these two tools should play a role, and they're going to change year over year. The prioritization of how much goes into each of those tools is going to shift a little bit, and it has everything to do with how much you're paying yourself personally from your business. So there is no like, unlike, when you're a T Ford employee, we usually say save 10% and that's fine, and it's split like depending on the income level. Maybe it's mostly RSPs and you just max out your annual contributions in your TFSA. So for small business owners, it will be an evolution is what I'm getting at. And it should be an evolution because the way you pay yourself is likely going to change. If you've been a business owner for any length of time, more than like 3 years, you know that cash flow changes, what you pay yourself changes. And there may be years in which you do different techniques for paying yourself to be more efficient. And that will change which of those tools you're going to use. So, incorporated or not, it has a lot to do with how much you are personally paying. And again, that's that blend of advice that you want from your financial planner and your accountant coming together. Like, you know, it's so funny. I see a lot of business owners like separate their financial planner from their accountant. And like, I think bring them together. That's like one of the best money moves if you're a business owner. Like, bring these two people together so that they can work on your file, like with the lens of making you more wealthy. That's the goal.
That is the goal. Okay, we've just got 1 minute left. One of the things you believe is most critical for entrepreneurs, for self-made millionaires, is consistency.
Absolutely.
Why is the word? Why is the C word so important? The consistency word.
You know, as an entrepreneur, cash flow goes up, it goes down, it goes all around. So what I can tell you is research shows that consistently making contributions, consistently meeting with your financial advisor to change and tweak your strategy, consistently evaluating how all the techniques and strategies to grow your nest egg, consistency and making it a priority to ensure you are funded properly for your golden years is what will make all the difference. The good news is that entrepreneurs are by default consistently persistent. And so we know you have it in you. And it's very much about whether cash flow is good or bad, that you're making contributions in the most efficient way possible to your retirement nest egg. And that is by design with your planner and accountant.
Leslie-Anne, so helpful. Thank you for making the time for us today.
Thank you.
Leslie-Anne Scorgie, a personal finance columnist with the Toronto Star, founder of the financial education company MeVest, and she was joining us here today to talk about retirement planning, not just financial planning, but retirement planning for those who are self-employed.